I am the father of two sons. They're now ages 12 and 8. Back a few years ago, we found ourselves running into problems because my wife and I were so busy. We both worked, the kids were in sports, and we had no time to really figure out where we're going with our family. You know, it was 9 years in before the first time that my wife and I really sat down to say, what do we want our kids to look like when they're 18 years old? How are we going to get them there? We had just always kind of put it off with the assumption that we're doing a reasonable job at the moment and we just don't have time to kind of get ourselves going in necessarily in a planned direction. The first step as I went through to create this family constitution is I figured if I'm going to be creating structure, if I'm going to be kind of mapping out where my family's going, I better understand what's important to me as a parent first. You know, what qualities are important to me, what values are important, and what do I want to pass on to my kids so that they could be, you know, good, productive, competent adults. And so I went through that process. I spent a lot of time walking around the San Clemente Pier, just kind of relaxing and taking in thoughts and just writing everything that could come into my head. And I asked my wife to do the same thing. And when we had our notes, we were able to sit down and kind of move on to the second step, which is creating a vision for our family. You know, let's compare each other's values and important traits, and then let's look forward to when our kids are 18, because that's really kind of the last time before you release them into kind of the adult world that you have any control whatsoever. So we wanted to kind of build the important traits up to the point where when they're 18, they're ingrained in their soul, they're ingrained in their personalities, so they could, you know, go forth and prosper, so to speak. So we spent a lot of time kind of discussing for the first time in, you know, the 10 years that by that time, or 9.5 years that we'd been parents, what was important to us. And we realized that, you know, we want our kids to be kind. We want them to be responsible. We want them to avoid some of the pitfalls that the teenage years can bring. And we want them to be happy and capable of finding love and kind of all the good things that life has to offer. You know, we'd much prefer them to go down that track than to go down the convenient track and let them play video games, you know, 18 hours a day and go to sleep when they want and eat what they want and whatever. So we kind of itemized where we wanted the kids to go, you know, starting when they're 18 and working backwards. And then the next process was to observe the family and just see what's going on, see where the hot spots are, see what behaviors maybe contradict kind of the grand plan, and, you know, put those kind of on the hot list of things that we could fix through structure. So I carried around a pocket pad, you know, about this size in my pocket for an entire month. You know, whether I was at home or at work or, you know, out and about, I kept it in my bin. Whenever I would think or observe something that I might want to fix with the family at some point in the future, I just jotted it down. You know, I wasn't trying to solve it, wasn't even trying to say, hey, this is something that I have to fix right now, but I just wanted a comprehensive list of the things that we might want to change so that when it comes down to it, you know, we had all the right elements to choose from, and then we can, you know, prioritize and move forward. So I took copious notes over the course of a month, and my wife took some notes, not quite as copious as mine, and at the end, we kind of laid them all out and then picked and choose, you know, figuring that we want to attack the things that are important to us now, but we don't want to weigh ourselves down with so much structure that it's, you know, it's not sustainable. So we picked the top 4 things. You know, bedtime was critical. We argued about bedtime just about every night. Diet, we wanted our kids to, you know, get in the habit of eating a little bit healthier. Limitations on video games and TV, because, you know, if it was convenient to us on a Saturday, we could let them watch TV all day long. It was an easy babysitter, but it wasn't in line with our ultimate goal for them. We didn't want them to be couch potatoes, when they grew up. So we started to put all these things on a priority chart, and then finally said, okay, this is what we're going to address with our family constitution. These elements are going to be part of the fabric of our family and the family structure. So I'm just going to use one quick example, and then I'd like to kind of open it up to some issues that you guys are experiencing. But as I mentioned, probably several times already, bedtimes. It was just tough because, again, kind of had guidelines. Wanted the kids to go to bed at around 8:30, but if they were grumpy, guess what? 8 o'clock, it's time for you to go to bed. Arguing with a grumpy kid about going to bed early is not a productive use of time. If we were in the middle of something, we might let them stay up till 9 o'clock, again, to kind of suit our convenience. But the one thing that was for sure, when we said that it was time to go to bed, we would get a certain amount of pushback, whether it's, can I just finish my show? Can I stay up 15 minutes longer? Can I get something to eat? Whatever it was, there was always that excuse why they should not be going to bed. So what we did is we first came up with boundaries. Okay, what time do we want them to go to bed? Ultimately, we decided my older son can go to bed at 8:45, and my younger son needed to be in bed at 8 o'clock. And rather than argue with them on a nightly basis, we said, okay, guess what? It's now your responsibility to brush your teeth and be ready for bed. And you would think that, you're asking a lot of them, but, even at 6, you're capable of looking at a clock, and especially if mom and dad are going to remind you of getting yourself upstairs, brushing your teeth, and getting in bed. So we set the boundary, but of course, just setting a boundary is not going to do much, right? If there's no consequence or no reward to incentivize them to abide by the boundary, what are you going to do? So ultimately what we came up with is, here's your bedtime. If you're in bed on time from Sunday to Thursday, you can stay up an extra hour on the weekends, on Friday and Saturday night. If you're not in bed on time, you're going to go to bed a half an hour earlier the following night. And, it seems strict, but it worked, and of course, it's their job. They tested it, and they went to bed early. But they only did it a couple times before they realized that, hey, my parents are serious about this. If I don't want to be going to bed a half an hour early, I better get to bed.